So I get to follow that. Well, my name is Tom Swiss, and I'd like to take just a few minutes and talk to you about one of my favorite topics, magic and change. And I just want to throw a couple of ideas at your head, a couple of ideas that I've been dealing with in my own work for the past couple of years. And then if you'll indulge me after that, I'd like to all together do a brief meditation, a little ritual, try and put everybody's head into a really nice space before T-Ferry takes us off into orbit there. So I'd like to talk to you for just a few minutes, my friends, about magic and change. Now, we've got this big 2012 thing coming up next week, and everyone has their own interpretation of what it all means. Some people think that some cosmological, metaphysical switch is going to be flipped, and that's why the world is going to change. And others think that it's just a really good opportunity to take a moment to pause and look around this world that we're making. Look at what our culture, what our species is doing, and maybe decide to do something different. Sort of like a New Year's resolution, but a new era resolution. Something on a really big scale. And we can argue which view is correct over a beer, which, always a good way to argue, I think. But whichever view you take, if you're interested in 2012 and this whole idea of the eschaton at all, it's all about change, is what it comes down to. It's all about change. So what does magic have to do with that? Well, according to good old Aleister Crowley, who was more than a little bit of an asshole, but knew a few things about magic. Magic is the science and art of causing change to occur in conformity with will. Magic is about making change happen in accordance with our will. And therefore, says crazy old Uncle Aleister, every intentional act is a magical act. Now, change is going to happen. That's pretty much an inevitable fact of our existence. But if we are intentionally making change happen, then we are magicians. A magician clearly sets their intention about what sort of change they want to happen. They know their true will, as Crowley would put it. And they then will go and raise power. What that means is psychological power. It means getting your mind out of old ways of thinking, being open to new ideas. And then the magician will direct that power to effect the change that they desire. Now, maybe this is all getting a little bit abstract, so I have a little visual aid here. The ultimate symbol of today's dominant paradigm, the $1 bill. Now, on the face of this $1 bill, we have George Washington, the father of our country, right? Yada, 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 yada. Now, I am not one of these people who worships the founding fathers. Old George here was a one-percenter. He was an aristocrat and a slave owner. But there is something very important about his story. And that is, at the end of the American Revolution, they were all set to make him a king. And he turned it down. He said, I didn't fight King George over there to become King George over here. I don't know if those are the exact words he said, but that was kind of the sentiment there. And this is amazing because kings were the dominant paradigm. Not just back then, but for the whole span of recorded history. Okay? You go all the way back to the tales of Gilgamesh and those guys back in Mesopotamia. You got kings hanging around. A few exceptions here and there, like, ancient Athens, but pretty much throughout human history, anywhere you had a settled, civilized culture, you had some guy, usually a guy, sometimes a woman, but usually a guy, claiming to rule it by divine right. Now, I could go on to a whole thing here about civilization and hierarchy and religion and priests, and contrasting that with Paleolithic cultures and shamans and gatherer hunters, but I did promise Robin that I would keep this short. So I'll just say I've got a book coming out where I talk about some of this stuff. But what's important here is the idea that we had this dominant paradigm for thousands of years. And then just a few hundred years ago, which on the big scale, the kind of big scale that Joe was talking about there, on the big scale, just a few hundred years ain't nothing. So this is all brand new stuff we're talking about here. Just a couple hundred years ago, we start to get some real change. You get the end of feudalism. You get the Industrial Revolution. You get mass communication coming around from the printing press all the way up through the internet. You get people talking and thinking about religion and spirituality in whole new ways. Now this change that started just a few hundred years ago, this is something as big as the dawn of civilization itself, and we're right in the middle of it. It's not something that's going to happen overnight, but we're right here in the middle of it. It's going to take a few hundred more years to play out. And since we are in this time of change, and magic is all about change, it behooves us to familiarize ourselves with a couple of the basic principles of magic and how we can use magic to change the dominant paradigm. Now, if we look at this dominant paradigm here, we might think that it's an insolvable problem. It's such a solid thing. But, you know, the thing about this is if you apply just a little bit of pressure, well, it folds. It's like the old Chinese cliche about the paper tiger, right? It folds. You just put just a little bit of pressure on it. And if we all knew our true will, if we all had an intent to replace that dominant paradigm with something new, something more community-based. Anybody here from the B note? Yeah, okay. Some folks know, the B note, local currency, all that good stuff. If we all set our intention to replace that dominant paradigm with something different, well, we might see some real change start to happen. So I'd like to take just a minute or two here to encourage and invite you to practice some of these basic skills of magic, to think about intent and change and about shaking your brain out of old patterns of thought. And one more very important magical principle. This one might be known to anyone who's familiar with the Church of the Subgenius. Because the subgeniuses call this one King Bob Solomon's first key to magic. And it is, get off your ass! Because it's real easy to sit around and talk about setting an intention. Oh man, you know, I've set my intention. But that's really beautiful. But now you got to get up off your ass and do something towards that goal there. So with your kind cooperation, I'd like to invite you to do a little meditation, a little visualization ritual here with me, and practice some of these skills. So if you would like to do this, and I can't make you do it, you have your own true will, but if you would like to do that, I invite you and I ask you just stand for a moment, just stand comfortably, if you would, and shake any tension out of your body. Hopefully there's not a lot of tension in this room, but it's always good to just move your body around a little bit. And close your eyes so that you can focus on your inner vision for a moment. And let's all take a deep breath together. We're going to literally conspire here, because that is what conspire means, to breathe together. This deep breath in. And let it out. And again, nice deep breath in. And let it out. And one more time, because that which you do 3 times is true. Deep breath in and hold it for a moment. And be aware that right now, molecules of air that were in the lungs of the person next to you are in your lungs. Wow. And breathe out. We all share this air. And now I ask you, and I invite you to consider, as we move into this time when change is highlighted, what sort of change you want to see in the world around you, or in the world inside of you. They reflect each other. So whichever one you want to focus on is fine. You change one, you change the other. But be specific. I want world peace. I want universal enlightenment. Well, that's nice, but it's kind of nebulous. Try to visualize specifically, concretely, what that change you desire would look like. And I invite you and I ask you to choose one specific action that you could take towards that change. And I invite you to decide, to make the decision here and now tonight, to take that action. Set your intention to act. For that is the first step in any magic, is to know your true will. And now, as we breathe together, I invite you to visualize breathing in light from all around you. Let it fill your body as you breathe in. And as you breathe out, let that light go back out into the world. You can't hoard that light. It won't work. You have to share that light. So breathe in. Let that light fill your lungs, fill your body. As you breathe out, let that light back out into the world. Breathe in, filling yourself with the energy of the world. Breathe out, sharing that energy. And now I invite you to feel the earth beneath your feet. Be aware of it. Be aware of the ever-supporting earth that holds us all up. The supportive energy of the earth. I invite you to visualize roots going down from your feet, tapping into that energy below us. That stable earth, always supporting us. And I invite you to think. Go back to that space you might have been in when Joe was speaking. That cosmic space up above us. I invite you to think all the way up above the sky, above your crown chakra, going up a line to a star. The star that shines just for you. Maybe you have to move a little bit to one side or a little bit forward or back to get in line with that star. If you have to do that, go ahead. Get yourself in line with that star that's up there just for you. Connect to the sky. Know that you are part of this universe. That the stars shine for you, that the earth supports you, that you share in the energy of this human realm. Know this. And if you know this, then I invite you to pick a signifier, a symbol, a sound, a color, a taste, a smell, a word, a piece of music. Some signifier with which you can know this fact and this state in which you now find yourself. And I invite you to take that signifier into your heart and hold it there and know that it will always be with you. And now I invite you to be aware once again of the space around us, the things that you hear, the things you may feel on your body. Your eyes are closed. When you're ready, I invite you to open your eyes. And see and be aware of all these wonderful people around you. The experience that we're going to share here tonight. And I'll leave you with the words of the great bard, Dr. Billy Bardo, who said, "Magic is an art, worked with will and from the heart. So listen to your inspiration and not to your fears." Thank you very much.